Hey everybody, this is Adam Forgione and this is part 2 of Pricing Formula. If you haven't seen that one first, I would click that link below and watch that one first, because then this video will probably make more sense. I got a lot of questions on social media, so I'm just gonna hit them one at a time. So here we go. Question number 1. What happens when the client says they need a crew for 8 hours and then they're cut after 3? Do you still bill for the 5? Won't your client be angry if you do? Won't your crew be angry if you don't? Good question. We bill for the time we use. 8 hours, 5 hours, 3 hours, whatever time we're there for is the time we're going to bill. Something like this has never happened to us, this dramatic. And if it did, we would do the right thing. But ultimately, it's our responsibility to make sure that our estimations from the get-go are on target, and they generally are. For a 1 to 2 hour shoot, do you charge for setup teardown? Oftentimes, just one interview equals 3 to 4 hours, nearing a half a day that we're on site. Yeah, we're in the same boat, so we'll bill from the time we're there. So basically, if we do a shoot in, let's say, New York City, we're allocating probably 30 minutes from the time we show up till the time we get our gear into that room that we're going to be filming. They're on the clock by that point, 30 minutes in. Then we also allocate about 90 minutes to set up for a professional interview, for lighting, audio, composition, the whole 9 yards. So we're 2 hours in, billing before we even shot anything. And then maybe we have an interview for 1 hour. So they're billed for that hour. And then maybe breakdown is 45 minutes. So we'll bill for that time. So ultimately, we're in the same boat with you, and it's very rare that we'll do a 1 or 2 hour shoot. Usually it's kind of like pickup shots for B-roll and things like that, but it rarely does happen. How do you explain or differentiate when it is necessary to have 2 versus 3 people on a shoot? It's our responsibility to make sure that we set up the logistics properly for our clients. We look out for them. So if the shoot we believe requires a 2-person crew or a 3-person crew, we're going to bring that up into the estimate. If the client wants to downgrade and go from a 3 to a 2 and we feel that that's not a good move, we'll also communicate with them and let them know that we don't think it's a good idea, but they are cutting corners. If they want to do it, these are the expectations. These are the things that can go wrong. These are the things that you may miss out on. So it's all about communication. But ultimately, it's our responsibility to determine what the best scenario is. At the same time, we're not trying to rip off our clients. We're trying to give them the best bang for the buck because we know that they'll come back to us. By focusing on the number of hours we're there for a shoot, I can vision clients trying to unrealistically squeeze more into this time than possible to save an hour or 2. Have you experienced this happening more? I'll often do a full day of interviews, and we generally tell the clients allow approximately 2 hours per interview if each is in a new location within the building. 45 to 60 minutes to set up, 15 to 30 minutes interview, and 25 minutes to tear down. Clients love to pack the schedule and cut the number in half. You're not alone. We have clients that do the same thing. They try to squeeze too much into a realistic schedule. So it's our responsibility to map out that schedule and explain or show them, here's how much time it takes to do this, 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 and this. A lot of times it's loading in, setting up, the actual interview itself. Sometimes it's transitioning in between interviews. Sometimes it's a reset. Sometimes it's a completely different location. Sometimes it's going from point A to point B and traveling. All these factor in different amounts of time, and we do put that on our timeline or schedule so they understand. If they try to squeeze more information in, we'll put it in the new timeline and we'll show them the new time. So they're going to be billed for those extra hours. And we just show them. If there's any discrepancy, the numbers don't lie. Have you had any clients asking to split up the day? Film in the morning for a couple of hours and then film a couple of hours in the day without paying for the middle. We don't allow this. The clock starts when we arrive, the clock ends when we depart. That's the way it is, and we do communicate that in case those situations come up. It just simply does not pay for us, and I'm sure most people in the industry, to sit around in the middle and twiddle their thumbs until they're ready to work again. Once we leave the house, we're working, and I think we're all in the same boat. Do you show your breakdown of the hours in each category, pre, production, post, in the quote to the client? Like you mentioned in pre-production, you can have project management or talent casting or numerous other tasks. Do you show them the individual hours for each of those subcategories, or do you simply give them hourly ranges per each of the large 3 categories? Good question. Yes, so we do subcategories. We are very specific with the hours we're charging. So if we're spending a few hours casting, or going through the process of researching for casting, we're going to bill for that. If we're going through script writing for 5 hours, we're going to bill for that. If we're doing music supervision, where we're actually looking for and determining the right music tracks before you even buy the music, we're billing for that. Any additional fees, of course, they're also going to get billed, and we bill them at the rate that we get them. So for instance, if a music license costs a certain amount, well, then that's how much they get charged. If an actor charges a certain amount, well, that's what they get charged. We're just billing for the time it takes to manage that aspect. And it could include part of the time of emails back and forth, hiring that actor, for example. The same goes for production and post-production. So if it's just straight editing, we might say build 30 hours for editing. But if there's motion graphics involved, or if there's some major coloring involved or something like that, we'll break it down and we'll put those hours in there. For shooting, the same idea. Usually we'll do it based on a day. So if we're shooting day 1, day 2, day 3, we'll break it up like that. How do the numbers change for you if it's an out-of-state corporate shoot? Travel. That's a great question. So we have to be paid for our time. We're not going to travel for free. And it seems there are clients that don't understand that. They expect you to spend your time for free until you actually press record. But that's just simply not the way it works in our industry, and quite frankly, any industry. First things first, respect people's time, no matter what industry they're in. So the way we handle this is we have separate pricing for travel versus production, but it's very similar. So here's our formula for travel only. The formula for two-person crew is $8.25 base and $1.25 an hour, but we bill portal to portal. So, for example, if I'm flying to Michigan from New York, the time it takes to travel to the airport is not included, unless it's over an hour. Once we pass the hour mark, we're on the clock. But let's just say it's an hour away. We get to the airport, we're clocked in. We get to the airport 2 hours early, so there's 2 hours we're already on the clock before the plane even takes off. The plane goes and it flies for, let's say, 3 hours. So now we're 5 hours in. Then we have to get off the plane, we have to get our bags, we have to get our rental car, if that's the case, or a taxi, we have to go to our hotel. When we reach the hotel, the clock stops. Or, unless we're going directly to a client's location and we're starting to shoot, then it kicks in and it changes. But for this example, let's say we get to the hotel. So over the course of that entire time, from the time we got to the airport till the time we got to the hotel in the new city, let's just say that was 6 hours, that's what we're billing. The formula for 3 camera is $1,200 base and $200 an hour, the same example. In addition to that, any additional fees or expenses when we're traveling are billed to the client as well. Obviously, airfare, hotel, taxi, rental, anything like that. Even baggage, that's one that a lot of people miss. And don't forget the baggage fees when you're doing airfare. If everything is billed by the hour, how do you quantify the time that you spend thinking about the concept? Say, for example, while you're driving or in a cafe. It's an interesting question, but if I'm driving or I'm in a cafe and I'm brainstorming a project that's coming up and I have more ideas in my head, I'm certainly not going to charge the client for this. This is just the way my brain works. I'm a creative person, and that's just how it is. If I actually set aside time in my calendar to brainstorm, that's a different story, and it gets billed under our $100 an hour pre-production rate. In addition to that, if we're brainstorming with multiple people, let's say 3 people are in a room and necessary to brainstorm this concept for 1 hour, we're not going to charge $100 for that 1 hour. We're going to charge $300 for that 1 hour because there are 3 people involved. Let's say you tell the client editing will take 20 to 25 hours, and they agree to the quote. If the editor takes 20 hours, is the work worth $500 less to the client? Is the quality $500 worse? It stands to reason the more time you put into something, the more polished it will be, but there is more than just the numbers of hours that determine that. What if the editor gets really good and does it in 18 hours? Are you going to punish yourself because you've gotten really good at something and charge for 18 hours of work? What if you do the job quicker and the video can be deployed sooner? Is that not worth more? Instead of waiting for 4 months to deploy a video, you're able to work quickly and still do good work and do it in 2. Is that not more valuable? So this is an interesting question, and here's my take on it. When I tell a client the edit is going to take 20 to 25 hours, I'm telling them this can cost you $2,000 or $2,500. I don't know yet, But once I'm finished editing, you're going to get a bill for somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $2,500. Clear as day. If the client agrees and understands there is a window or a range, there's no problem. And that's what happens all the time. If I say, hey, this is going to take 25 hours and it really takes 50 hours, we may have a problem. And the reverse. If I say it's going to take 20 to 25 hours and it actually takes 18 hours, I'm billing that client for $1,800, not $2,000 and not $2,500. But guess what? We clock out of that job that much earlier. We're only spending 18 hours on it and moving on to the next project to make more money. We're not spending 20 hours and we're not spending 25 hours. So the process works for us. And if we tell the client 20 to 25 hours and it actually takes 18, bonus for them. We're fine, we're moving on to the next one, and everybody's happy. As far as how quickly a job gets put out, we're very clear with our clients and we tell them what our ETAs are. We generally, with commercial work, are able to put out a lot of work within about 4 weeks. But if a client comes to us and says, hey, we have a really big deadline, it's a rush, are you able to do this? We'll evaluate our calendar and we'll make sure we can pull it off. If we can pull it off, we'll let them know. We may bend over backwards to get that gig because that could be a new lucrative account. If we feel that we're jumping through hoops and it's really not worth it, we do have to charge a premium. We charge extra to rush that work because we're pushing other jobs out of the way to get this job done. Is there a minimum you think a relative newcomer should be charging? I've made 4 to 5 videos for clients for free already. I know that I should charge my worth, but is there a ballpark for the very minimum I might want to charge for editing or shooting? Okay, I'm not going to answer this question with specific numbers because it's such a subjective question. And I know I might say something that some agree with and some may not agree with, and rightfully so. I know what I'm worth based on my experience and what I've been doing over the years, and I'm happy and content with that. I understand as a newcomer, you kind of don't know where to start. So what I have done is shared my real numbers in video number 1. And what I'd like to do is have you look at those numbers and then look at my website, plvisuals.com, and look at the work. Does your work compare to that? Is it better than that? Is it worse than that? And be honest with yourself. If you're right on par with the level of work that I'm doing, well, I say charge what I'm charging if you're not sure, and go from there. If you think you're not as good, charge less. I don't know how much less. You'll have to figure that out. If you think you're better, go for it. Charge more, and you'll probably get it because you're worth it. And that's really it. It's a very hard question to ask, and I really can't put a number to it. I could just tell you, this is what I think I'm worth, therefore this is what I'm going to charge. This is very helpful information, although I find that the difficult part is not in the pricing model, it's accurately valuing your own work. When do I know I deserve a price increase? Raising prices. Really, everybody wants this, right? I look at it this way. It's all about supply and demand. If you're working too much and you want to slow down, you'll want to work less and make more per project. Raise your prices. If you're not working enough and you may be overcharging because of that, or you're losing gigs because of that, you may want to lower your price. You'll get more gigs. You have to determine that speed. Ultimately, you have to determine what makes you happy. There are a lot of one-man shows out there and they're content doing X amount of jobs a year, and you have to figure out that number. For others, there are large companies with maybe 3, 4, 5 different crews going out simultaneously. Well, you have to figure out that number to keep everyone busy and keep the machine rolling. So everybody's got a different preference on this, but I will say this is directly connected to the law of supply and demand, and the cheaper you are, potentially the more work you can do. The more expensive you are, generally the less work you'll do. Anyway, I hope this Q&A session was helpful for those obviously who asked the questions and anyone else watching, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these. Take care.